No one paid attention to the body buried beneath the snow. For years it laid there, undisturbed in the vestibule of the Tavistock Gallery, forgotten by everyone they mattered to. It wasn't until the groundbreaking ceremony when Mayor Hulse struck the downtrodden earth with the blunt end of a rusty shovel. The event was meant to be more symbolic than anything else, a supposed precursor to how the seedy history of the mall was now long behind us. But with a sickening crunch, the shovel not only split apart the forsaken skull, it also dredged up memories. I was 16 when the Galleria first opened, back when the only reputation it had was being a great place to hang out after school to smoke pot. It was near the fountain where I had my first kiss, and the roller rink was where I had my first fight. Tavistock was full of my memories, but none quite as potent as the ones I shared with Gabriella. By the time we had met, the mall was struggling, but still on its heyday. Some stores were closed, others opening up, and other kids used it for skating parks after dark. I met her while I was working at the Babbage on the first floor. A new clothing department opened up across the mezzanine. She was gorgeous, from the moment I laid eyes on her. I remember finding some flimsy excuse to go over to the store and strike up a conversation. "How long you been working here?" I asked. She giggled. It was an infectious thing. "You know the answer to that. I've seen you every day," she said. I flushed the cheeks. "You noticed?" "Hard to ignore someone like you," she flirted. We hit it off immediately. Before I knew it, she agreed to meet me after work, and we wound up making out in one of the changing rooms in Sears. I think I cling to those memories the most. Good, pleasant ones. Of a time when our love was real. What the others tell about me isn't pleasant, but they're the ones that stick. It was a December much like this one. We had been going steady for a while, and I decided it was time for me to go over to Zales and grab a ring. My buddy Zach worked there, and I figured he could set me up for a sweet deal, especially since the store was closing soon. Not sure I could do much to help. The boss is adamant that we can't make specs deals because of recent mishaps in the food court, Zach told me. I pretended to know what he was talking about, and I kept the conversation on jewelry. "I want to get Gabby something perfect," I told him. He seemed surprised by my sudden decision of commitment, and he even tried to talk me out of it. But I wouldn't listen. I got the best my measly $200 could buy, and even included a small bracelet to boot. Zach claimed it was meant to make a person love you even more. And like a fool, I bought it thinking that it could give me good luck. That same midwinter night, I told Gabby to meet me in the food court. We were going to grab some wings, go over to the Flicker Theater for an old western on the main floor. But she didn't show. Eventually, I grew tired of waiting, and I went to search for her, thinking maybe she'd gotten tied down by work. Her manager told me differently. "Oh yeah, she clocked out about 3 hours ago," he said with a snide huff, too concerned with his business to worry about my love life. I searched up and down the mall trying to see if maybe she'd gotten distracted. Eventually, I wound up on the second floor looking down at the food court when I saw her. She sat near the Chicken Express stand, seemed to be smiling at someone off in the distance. I followed her trail of vision, and my heart sank. It was another guy. They embraced and started laughing, chatting like old friends. All while I looked on from above. That infectious giggle seemed to fester like an open wound now as I watched her smile. It wasn't my smile anymore. If I had any question about her loyalty, I quickly found out when I confronted her the next day at work. "That was Brad, my new boyfriend," she said with a smirk. It was a smile that told me 1,000 things about her that I had never seen. What? Did you think you were special? Don't be ridiculous. You're a total nerd. Lame. She was giggling again. Now it sounded like the sound of nails scraping against the chalkboard. It took every ounce of energy I had to not overreact. Instead, I decided that two could play at that game. Well, I got you something, I guess, as a going-away present, I muttered. This piqued her interest. I told her we could meet out in the parking lot near the front vestibule after our shifts were over. But wait until the crowds are gone. I want it to just be us, I told her. She rolled her eyes, insisting that she wasn't interested in me anymore. You're just making a fool of yourself. I'll take whatever dollar store ring you bought me and pawn it. But I had other plans. I left work 13 minutes early. Just enough time to cross the mall and buy a hunting knife from the sporting goods store. I waited until close to midnight to actually show up, and somehow I knew her greedy, manipulative ass would be there to get what she thought she deserved. Instead, I gave her what I knew she needed. About time you showed up. I'm freezing my tits off, she said, as I passed her the small black bag. Inside was a severed finger. The hell is this? I smiled, raising the blade up with my bloody hand, and started to hack at her. She screamed at the top of her lungs as I shouted that if I couldn't have her, no one could. Before I knew it, her screams were muffled by my shouting in the parking lot. Tavistock was empty again. I really couldn't stop looking at her eyes. Just so innocent. So full of innocence and wonder. It anchored me to the time we had love. And in that moment, I panicked. And I ran. I was sure the police would find out what I did, or her parents, or someone. I lived on pins and needles for days. I didn't go in for work. I didn't even eat or sleep. But surprisingly, no such worries manifested. No one was found. No evidence of a struggle. It was like the mall had swallowed her whole. It seemed impossible, like a guardian angel had saved me from a hellish fate. Not long after, the entire building shut down, and I figured that my worry about being caught would be over for good. Tavistock became a ghost town, and the memories of my time there were just troubled ones. I half wondered if I had even remembered things wrong. Maybe I hadn't killed her. Maybe she got away. I didn't know for sure, and for 30 years it stayed that way. Not that I simply let it rest. In actuality, the guilt of my crime haunted me. This wasn't the freedom or revenge that I wanted. I was actually more of a prisoner of this mall than ever before. It couldn't be that her body had simply disappeared. It couldn't be. Your family also constantly searched. They put up missing persons posters. They went to the news begging people to come forward with any information. It actually shocked me that they never considered me a suspect, but I guess I was a forgotten relic. Just like the mall. But I couldn't forget. Her laughter haunted my dreams. Her smile was there every waking moment, taunting me that even in death she was happy. And then, of course, someone was dumb enough to decide they wanted to take a chance on the Galleria again. I was there for the ceremony, watching and waiting for the inevitable to occur. Despite the fact that I had checked the ground of this abandoned building more times than I could count, I was certain that today would be the day Gabriella would come back into my life. When that shovel tore up the earth, and they found her body, it was both a wave of relief and panic that coveted me. She was back. My love had come back for one last laugh. The press and media were in an uproar to find out who she was, and the new owners of Tavistock were quick to cover it up. This is merely a publicity stunt designed to poke fun at the mall's terrible past. Well, we recognize now that it was in poor taste, the official statement said. But that was bullshit. I knew. It was Gabby. And I was going to prove it. I waited until the crowd had left and came back to the mall after dark. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, nor even a star. It was just a still blank canvas of darkness that washed over the entire establishment like a toddler amuck with a paintbrush. I brought my own equipment and I started to dig, desperate to dispose of the bones once and for all, but Gabby wasn't there. Instead, I found myself digging up an empty grave where she should have been. "You never could leave this place," a voice echoed in the back of me. I slowly turned around, fearful of what I was about to discover. It was her. Except not the Gabby that I remembered. This one was covered in cuts, long slashes that made her naked body look like a serrated steak. Worst of all were her eyes. Gouged out, hollow. She smiled wickedly toward me as she giggled again. This time it was a laugh of pure evil. "You never will let me go, no matter how hard you try." I dropped my tools. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "The small took everything from me. And so did you. If I'm cursed to be bound to it, then you should be too." She answered, and she grabbed a hold of my head. I saw ghastly visions dance across my subconscious. Hell itself on earth. There was unspeakable abominations writhing under the surface of the mall. I could see the tiles of our floor buckling and cracking as they screamed to be free. Then she pulled me back to reality. And I was alone. I raced to get out of there. But try as hard as I could, I was still trapped in the same space, still at Tavistock. And maybe I never really left. I thought about killing myself, and then I remembered the curse that Gabby had placed on me. My soul bound here now. I watched the sun rise over the lake. I waited as construction workers came to begin their work on Tavistock. I blended in quite easily with the crowd. It's been a few weeks now, and the mall is about to open up again, and I suspect it's because it needs more people like me and like Gabby to feed on. All I know for sure is that it's inescapable. Hey there, kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to tell you thank you for listening to tonight's story on the podcast if you're listening on Spotify, or to the videos if you're listening on YouTube. And if you're listening anywhere else, then probably let them know that they're not supposed to have this there, because it's only supposed to be on Spotify or YouTube or wherever podcasts go, or, you know. I also want to give a very big thank you shout out to all of you guys out there on Patreon. If you guys want to check out patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta, you're able to support the show, support me, support my cats, support, being cool folks out there, like people like these. Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Mr. Thud, Ken Lando Higuchi, Chompski, Bobby Karman, Nico Kaeo, Tristain Pelton, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, Raven Hart, 1-800-Nightmare, King Hades F13, Unknown Nobody, Joshua Mcmeekin, Michael Scharbrough, Kazan, ThisIsMyRealNameNoShit, Jason VB Wilson, InfernalOne, Lilwulfgaming, JimboTheHutt, Caspian, Jordan Nells, Hades Nephew, Jordan Wayne Deckard, Bradley Lipe, Ann Charon, Acid System, Mike Bullock, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Brian Arce, Cryptic Nightmares, Brianna Wright, Someone You Love, S-Man, Kiri the Sloth, Thomas Burgett, Liam Newman, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Nina Smith, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, and Corey Kenshin. Thank you guys so much for your support on Patreon. I really can't thank you enough. And everybody who's down there in the description, thank you guys so much as well. And everybody who's not on either of those tiers, who just have $1 on Patreon, I can't thank you guys, for making these these past 10 years, incredible. This entire time I've ever spent on YouTube, on podcasting, everything amazing. And all of you who are at home listening, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful, happy holidays and sweet dreams.